Dear students, in this session we will be discussing on citizenship and national identity. The objectives of this session is to theoretically understand the idea of citizenship, the various dimensions of citizenship, how citizenship is linked to the formation of national identity, and to analyze how citizenship is practiced in India. As an introduction, a citizen is a member of a political community or state endowed with a set of rights and a set of obligations as duties. Citizenship is commonly described as the relationship between the individual as a citizen with the state to which he or she may belong. This is the state to which citizens owe allegiance and for which they perform some agreed upon duties, and in return the state has to protect them in various ways. The dimensions of this membership is broadly classified as citizenship as legal status defined by civil, political and social rights. Citizenship brings in political agency and it is a source of identity and belonging. Discussions and debates on citizenship are not new. It has a long tradition. This module deals with the historical and contemporary manifestation of citizenship, especially in India. Before moving on to the details, let's see the history of citizenship. Citizenship was an important theme in ancient Greek and Roman republics. Greek citizens had to be free and own property. This eliminated the far larger population of slaves in the Greek city-states or those that did not have the means to own property. The largest group of all that was the denied citizenship was women. Under Roman law, citizenship was first limited to those that resided in the city of Rome as against all the rest of the conquered Roman territory. However, as the Roman Empire grew to include many more territories, adjustments were made to include those categories of people as citizens, but not women. The social relations were mainly between patricians and plebeians. In the Greco-Roman societies, citizenship was a converted status and open to only a few, and among these it was more common among those who were the wealthier urban dwellers. It did not include all the members of the society. In those regions, it was an exclusive status. In ancient Athens, citizenship was primarily perceived in terms of participation in duties. Citizens were legally required to take their turn in public office. In ancient Athens, citizens actively participated in the institution of government such as assemblies, councils, courts and public debates. Though an ardent democrat, Pericles in 1451 BC restricted the franchise to the legitimate offsprings of Athenian parents to ensure that the reward of citizenship were confined to the Athenian middle class. During that time, a man who had no interest in politics or the administration of his state was described as an idiot. Athens assured that each individual has an interest not only in his affairs but in the affairs of the state as well. Citizenship during Pericles' time mean the common good and common endeavors among citizens. The constitution was not a legal document but a way of life, with every Athenian participating with total commitment. Each individual acquired a civic personality and a sense of responsibility. There was a general commitment to the idea of civic virtue. Private interest was subordinated to the public welfare and the common good. The slaves and traders enjoyed the legal status of the free individual but no citizen rights. The status of citizenship in modern times. In the modern period, citizenship connotes a status defined concerning a set of particular rights and duties. It is not only grants the right to participate in politics but also a right to pursue their private commitments. It is also an identity indicating one's membership in a political community. This identity is shared in common by different groups in societies, and thus it is integrative but conveys equal status and equal rights before the law. So, besides membership, citizenship in the modern period signifies the participation of citizens in the collective affairs of their government. For the ancient, it was regarded as a privilege to select a few, but for the moderns, the spread of democracy and its universal suffrage. Citizenship represents universality. A common identity makes each citizen proud of the whole nation to which he or she belongs. This is made possible by considering citizens as equal under law. In the modern period, citizenship keeps a democratic notion. It differs from the pre-modern conceptions that determined people's status by their ethnicity, gender, religion or class. Citizens are classified as natural and naturalized citizens. Jus solis confers citizenship based on place of birth, and jus sanguinis confers citizenship based on the nationality or ethnicity of one or both parents, are the two ways of determining citizenship. The crucial equalitarian impulse of the modern citizenship is based on the principle of one person, one vote. The Constitution is central to citizenship. This is a formal document formally adopted by the representatives of the people involved in demanding citizenship. It was also the accumulation of rights and duties acknowledged by all, even if not framed in a formal document. The Constitution is of fundamental importance in stating the rights and duties of the citizen and the state towards each other. It was the contract that also incorporates the procedures to be endorsed or to be followed through subsequent action. It encapsulates the fundamental rights of the citizen and the obligation and duties of each to the other of the citizen and the state. It is sometimes said that to protect the Constitution, the freedom of three components, the legislature, the executive and judiciary, through which governance is carried out, has to be secure from the interference by any single government and open to carrying the opinion of citizens if so required. Each component has to keep a check on the other. They are also meant to ensure the relationship between the citizen and the state maintains a healthy balance. Basic human rights were the starting point. The most basic of all was the right to life that the state had to protect. This included the provision of food, water and shelter, and moved to employment as well as the right to health care and education. At another level, social justice and equality of all before the law was considered fundamental, impinging on rights about the political forms of societies. In terms of these rights to be possible in rightful terms to the citizen, the state has to be secular and democratic values. So now moving on, the theorizing on citizenship and national identity. Aristotle was the thinker who provides the earliest discussion of citizenship. Citizenship was of pivotal importance to him. He perceived that ideal governance is possible only by a law-based state in which citizen abides by law. Aristotle characterizes political authority as constitutional between equals, and since all individual is a political animal who finds fulfillment only within a polis, it is natural for people to aspire for political positions. Constitutional government concerning citizenship rights allows people to compete for political office without civil chaos. Aristotle defines a state as a collective body of citizens. He ruled out citizenship based on residence, since resident aliens and slaves also share a common residence with citizens but are not equipped to be citizens. Citizenship does not refer to the share that one has in civic rights to the extent of being entitled to sue and to be sued in the courts of law, for this right belongs to aliens as well. A citizen enjoys the right to share in the deliberative or judicial offices, can exercise his political rights effectively, and enjoys constitutional rights under the system of public law. For Aristotle, a citizen shares power in the polis. A good citizen has the intelligence and the ability to rule and to be ruled. Citizenship is a privilege and a status to be inherited. Aristotle points out that to discharge the functions effectively, citizens need to inhabit a polis that is compact and close-knit. Aristotle considers a good citizen as someone who could live in harmony with the constitution and has sufficient leisure time to develop himself to the tasks and responsibilities of citizenship. He regards the existence of a diversity of interest within a citizen body as essential to the practice of citizenship, for a good government could be attained only through a balance of these interests. A good citizen would possess virtue or moral goodness that would help in realizing a selfless and cooperative civic life. Aristotle regards citizenship as a bond formed by the intimacy of participation in public affairs. The bond is moreover a relationship which is guarded with some jealousy by those privileged to enjoy it. It is neither a right to be claimed by nor status to be conferred on anybody outside the established rank of the class, no matter how worthy such an outsider might be. On the other hand, T.M. Marshall is another major thinker who tried to theoretically define citizenship. He is a liberal social democrat representing the post-Second World War Keynesian consensus. He links citizenship to social class in the context of the rise of capitalism and its most important byproduct, the market. In his work, Citizenship and Social Class, published in 1950, Marshall emphasizes the British experience of citizenship. According to Marshall, citizen has three essential divisions: civil, political and social. The civil component consists of rights necessary for individual freedom, and this, the most essential ingredient, is the rule of law and the legal system. The political basis of citizenship is reflected in the right to participate in the political decision making process. The realization of such rights is associated with the representative parliamentary institutions. The social basis of citizenship is formed out of a right or the capacity to enjoy the fruits of the privileged standard of living and thereby providing the large social basis of community. Marshall's emphasis is on social services and the education system. In the British context, these dimensions of citizenship evolved gradually in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. Now let us go to the citizenship in India. British colonialism introduced both race and religion into the concept of the nation state. James Mill wrote The History of British India, published in 1817, the first modern history of India. In this work, he expounded his theory of two nations of India, the Hindu and the Muslim. Religion was incorporated into various strands of nationalism. Its final forms were the two categories of nationalism referred to as religious nationalism, the Muslim and the Hindu. Religious nationalism, basing itself on a religious identity, convinced the colonial power to cede them to a new state, Pakistan. However, the broader Indian nationalism did not support these religious ambitions and instead envisaged India as a secular democracy. The National Register of Citizens, which is often called as NRC, published in 1951, is a register prepared after the conduct of the census of 1951 in respect of each village, showing the houses or holdings in a serial order and indicating against each house or holding the number and the names of persons staying therein. Citizenship is listed in the Union list under the Constitution and thus is under the exclusive jurisdiction of Parliament. The Constitution does not attempt to define citizenship. What it does in part 2 is answer the question, who is a citizen of India, and make provisions to cover different categories of persons who are or shall be deemed to be citizens or are eligible to apply for citizenship after fulfilling certain specified conditions. Politically speaking, Article 5 declares that at the commencement of the Constitution has his or her domicile in the territory of India and was born, or whose father or mother was born within the territory of India, or who has been ordinarily resident in the territory of India for no less than 5 years immediately preceding such commencement shall be a citizen of India. The Act of 1955 provides for the acquisition and determination of Indian citizenship. It provides for acquiring citizenship in 5 different ways: by birth, descent, registration, naturalization and incorporation of territory. The various categories of persons who are entitled to citizenship are given in Part 2, covering Article 5 to Article 11. Article 5 provided for citizenship on commencement of the Constitution. Article 6 provided the rights of citizenship of certain persons who have migrated to India from Pakistan. Article 7 provided right of citizenship of certain migrants to Pakistan. Article 8 provided the right of citizenship of certain persons of Indian origin residing outside India. Article 9 provided that if any person voluntarily acquiring the citizenship of a foreign state will no longer be a citizen of India. Article 10 says every person who is or is deemed to be a citizen of India under any of the foreign provisions of this part shall, subject to the provisions of any law that may be made by Parliament, continue to be such citizen. Article 11 empowers Parliament to make any provision concerning acquisition and termination of citizenship and all matters relating to it. So, the Citizenship Act of 1955 was amended 6 times in 1986, 1992, 2003, 2005, 2015 and 2019. The purpose of the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 is to give Indian citizenship to illegal immigrants of 6 communities, that is Hindu, Sikh, Buddhist, Christian, Parsi and Jain belong to Bangladesh, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Through these amendments, Parliament has narrowed down the wider and universal principle of citizenship based on the fact of birth. With these restrictive amendments, India has almost moved towards the narrow principle of jus sanguinis or blood relationship. This lays down that an illegal migrant cannot claim citizenship by naturalization or registration, even if he has been a resident of India for 7 years. So, now let us move to the formation of citizenship and national identity in India. According to T.K. Oman, in a historical sense, there are 3 patterns of linking citizenship and national identity. They are hegemonic, uniformity pattern and pluralist. The hegemonic model is associated with feudal states. In these polities, the culture of the dominant group is reckoned as national culture. Other accepts an inferior position within the polity if they do not or cannot assimilate. The eclipse of the feudal state and the emergence of the bourgeoisie state resulted in a reformulation of the relationship between citizenship and national identity. The new formulation maintained that each nation must have its state, national and political boundaries should coexist. There was a variant of this formulation which maintained that national identity referred to the urge to preserve one's language, culture and customs, but this did not imply a separate sovereign nations could coexist under one political roof. The pluralist model was explicitly enunciated by the socialist state. The socialist assumption was that several historical nations could and would coexist within one state. Citizenship and nationality could be delinked. For him, Indian society was formed through the process of the accretion of immigrant and the dislocation of original inhabitants. The first recorded large-scale immigration of culturally distinct people into India occurred some 3,500 years ago with the Aryan invasion, which pushed the native Dravidians into the southern as well as to the relatively less hospitable geographical regions. Notwithstanding this dislocation, at least 40% of the total population of India today is constituted by those who claim to be the original inhabitants, the Dravidians, the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. The Aryans evolved into a distinct religion, language and a whole new scheme of social life. The second major cultural accretion occurred in India within the waves of Muslim conquest spanning centuries, beginning with the conquest of Sindh in 8th century AD. Although only a small section of the conquered group settled down, a substantial number of the local people embraced Islam. Consequently, India has over 100 million in the world. Similarly, when Persian became the official language, a new hybrid language, Urdu, emerged through its interaction with local languages, and it is strongly identified with the Muslim population of India. The third major cultural influence on India was the Western intrusion, particularly British colonial rule for 2 centuries. The British did not pursue a policy of proselytization, and yet the Indian Christian population now accounts for barely 2.5% of the total. But the English language has a powerful presence and is the main language of learning and administration, particularly at the higher levels, although it does not enjoy any constitutional status. The fourth major factor that contributed to the social formation is the freedom movement. Indian consciousness got crystallized for the first time during the national liberation movement. Indian freedom movement was totally in its orientation. The domination by the colonizer was not simply economic and political, but also cultural, racial, and even psychological. Admittedly, the unity provided by the movement was all embracing. This even though all the major religions in the world were professed and as many as 1650 languages and dialects were spoken in India as mother tongues, and there was nothing like an all Indian dress, cuisine, painting, dance, music or lifestyle. Perhaps the only institution that had a near universal presence in India was the caste system. The importance of Indian unity in the freedom movement ought to be weighted against this background. The emergence of Indian state occurred through the partition of British India into India and Pakistan based on religion, which was the fifth major factor in the formation of India, leading to large scale and in fact one of the biggest population transfers in human history. Between 1946 and 51, nearly 9 million Hindus and Sikhs came to India and about 6 million Muslims left India for Pakistan. Of the former, 5 million came from West Pakistan and 4 million came from the East Pakistan. The majority of Muslims who left India were from North India, however, and only a small number left East India. Further, while migration from the West Pakistan stopped by 1951, it continued for over 3 decades from East Pakistan. This resulted in the colonization of relatively underpopulated tracts of Bengali refugees, leading to conflict between them and the locals. In the case of the refugees from West Pakistan, the Sikhs constituted a high proportion. While a substantial number of them did settle down in Punjab itself, they also colonized parts of other states, particularly those contiguous with Punjab, as peasants. The issue of India's national identity is further complicated by the fact that several neighboring states have population which share the same socio-cultural and physical characteristics. India, with a predominantly Hindu population, and the Hindu kingdom of Nepal has substantial socio-cultural similarities, sharing a common and long religious historical tradition. Although the Nepali language and culture are distinct, the presence of a substantial number of Indian citizens of Nepali origin makes it difficult to distinguish clearly between the Nepali of Nepal and those of India, except in purely legal terms. The Bengali society is spread over West Bengal, Tripura and Bangladesh, having a common language and being participants in a shared cultural heritage, even as they profess different faiths. The Tamils inhabiting Sri Lanka may be categorized into 3 based on their socio-political status: Sri Lankan Tamils, Indian Tamils, and those who are not accepted as citizens either by Sri Lanka or by India. But all these categories are a member of Tamil society and participants in the Tamil culture along with Tamils of Tamil Nadu in India. Similarly, the experience of communities like the Punjabi, Hindus and Muslims, tribal groups in Northeast India, Kashmiri Muslims and the like so. This points to the disjuncture that prevails between nation and state in India, a product of a long historical process brought about by conquest, colonization and immigration. So, to conclude, we looked into the dimensions of citizenship and national identity from a theoretical, historical and national perspective. This will help you to bring an idea about citizenship and the relation between citizenship and identity formation. In the next session, we will be discussing on nationalism.